Today, I wanted to look at who would be the best suited to take over and protect Metropolis if Superman wasn't around. Months ago, I did a very similar video to this in regards of Batman in Gotham City, where I go through some of the Justice League characters, which is pretty much exactly what we're going to be doing here today, but with Superman. I can't remember the conclusions I came down to in that video, but I will link it in the description below if you want to check it out. Just before we get into it, I do have a Discord. If you want to join that, link will be in the description below, and make sure to like this video if you enjoy it. All right, let's get into it. So let's start with the most obvious one in Batman. How would he fare being the main protector of Metropolis without Superman? Well, in typical Batman fashion, I think he would have all types of answers to Metropolis's problems, even for those he'd be physically incapable of handling. Knowing him, he'd likely build all these different types of bat caves all around the city, secret entrances, secret hideouts. He'd start outfitting Metropolis the way he would in Gotham. In his preparedness, he'd probably create a whole bunch of brand new high-tech gadgets, new armors that would allow him to go up against foes that are more physically dominant and in strength-wise more powerful than he is. His technical and scientific intelligence would really come into play here so that he could find other ways of defeating Metropolis's villains without needing to rely on his human strength, even though we've seen enough Batman over the past 10, 15, 20 years to know he's not a regular human. And even though Metropolis, in terms of organized crime, is a lot less than Gotham City, Batman would likely clean that out as quickly as possible. However, I don't know if Batman would have the Metropolis Police Department support the way he does with the GCPD, and he wouldn't have that close confidant he can rely on to keep them off of his back or to even work with them in a Commissioner Gordon. I'm sure he could maybe develop something like that in Metropolis, but at the get-go, he wouldn't have one. Even though we can talk about so many pros about how Batman is capable of handling beings and metahumans so much more powerful than him, if villains like Zod or Brainiac came to Earth, what would Batman really do? If you literally do not give him any prep time, Batman is likely screwed if he gets seen or caught by one of them on his own. He would likely need a group of people to help him in these settings. Even some of the most powerful characters like Superman or Green Lantern need outside assistance from time to time. Batman would definitely need that. Overall, with Batman protecting Metropolis, I don't really think you can go wrong. But coming from a city that has a lot of very physically powerful villains and villains that come from outer space, which sometimes is out of Batman's wheelhouse, that is where Batman is going to really falter. Batman is a good protector of Metropolis for maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months tops. After that, you're going to need someone long-term who knows how to deal with these things and is strong enough to do it without Batman always needing to be in prep time mode. Now we look at Wonder Woman, and in terms of fighting skills, power and strength, she would have no problem dealing with a lot of the metahuman threats in Metropolis. She also tends to be a great influence with a very trustworthy nature, which makes her fit almost perfectly into a city like Metropolis as well. And because of her godlike, somewhat mystical heritage, superpowered villains are no stranger to her, and alien threats would be welcomed in the sense of giving her a new challenge to see what she herself is capable of. And her lasso of truth would be a much needed tool to root out some of the more internal problems, and could potentially even be used to stop threats before it even takes action. faction. But even though Wonder Woman can be seen as a diplomat between the people of the world and the Amazonian women, dealing with someone like Lex Luthor who would know how to play with those advantages might be a little difficult for Wonder Woman. Considering Lex Luthor can be very conspiratorial, very intelligent, plays through blackmailing and threatening, also uses the public eye to his advantage along with the vast amount of money he has. Whereas with Wonder Woman, she's very distinct and upfront and tells you how she is going to react and act in the moment. Dealing with people who like to play behind the scenes like Lex Luthor would maybe be a bit of a struggle for her. And I'm not saying Superman is the most technical character out there, but in terms of the Fortress of Solitude and all of the alien tech that comes with it, there is a certain amount of tech expertise that does come with Superman. With Wonder Woman, there's not really much of that. That aspect of her character might suffer in a city that is a little more technologically advanced than others and has a lot of intellectual threats utilizing technology that Wonder Woman herself might not be too good with. Wonder Woman might be able to brute force her way past those particular problems, but sometimes brute force just makes those problems even worse. Overall, I think she would be a great protector for Metropolis. I think there are just some characters and metahumans she wouldn't fully understand. When it comes to fighting characters on her level of strength or somewhere around there, I think she'd be absolutely fine. To keep Metropolis safe full time, I'm not sure if she would really want that. I think she would do it as a favor, maybe for a couple of months, a year tops, but she would not do it long term. Now we're going to look at Green Lantern, and this can be any lantern you want. John, Hal, Kyle, hell, even one of the aliens, Kilowog or Tomar Ray, if you want. Depending on which one you choose, they could be the best fit in terms of personality, approval, and dedication to the city, along with being powerful enough to handle many threats. Being a cosmic police force stationing themselves in the hub city of Earth in Metropolis, it might keep some of those powerful foes out there in the universe away from Earth. His ring could act as a communications array, always keeping himself informed on what's going on in the city and analyzing any potential threat as they come in. And again, depending on the lanterns you choose with their military training, they could keep this city highly defensible and ready for almost any potential threat. They could help Metropolis's infrastructure, being more prepared than they ever have, just in case high-level threats were to try and threaten them. However, if we have to look at some of the negatives here, Green Lantern's priority would be the entire sector. It wouldn't just be one city, unless you assigned a Green Lantern to specifically be dedicating their time to one city, which doesn't happen all that often, if ever. It could potentially keep them away from watching over Metropolis as intently as Superman would. And then to throw a negative on Earth's protection, there are a lot of villains out there who are super powerful in the DC universe that take all of Earth's allies to rally behind and defeat. I am sure there are some who would look at Earth's protection and say, I don't care, I'm diving headfirst into Metropolis, causing an all-out war that destroys more than half the city. Their protection could perhaps not be enough, and we've seen that happen so many times in DC's history before. Overall, I do have to say, I think Green Lantern protecting Metropolis makes me the most excited of anyone here, even the ones we haven't gone through yet. There are definitely some pros and cons, good and bads that could come with the Green Lanterns. However, I do think certain Green Lanterns would fit the bill as being the idol, the symbol, the protector of Metropolis in very similar ways Superman would be. Now we look at Martian Manhunter, and with his strength and and power being on Superman's level, also having additional powers like telepathy, shape-shifting, invisibility, and more, he may not have too many physical problems here. Because of how many abilities Martian Manhunter has, there are so many versatile ways in which he can handle threats around Metropolis. Deception, stealth, or simply strength, a show of force. He could even try and keep the city safe during day and night. Day as a detective, part of the Metropolis police force, or during the night as Martian Manhunter, or Martian Manhunter throughout the entire day, 24/7. It would be really important for Martian Manhunter to closely connect himself with the people of the city. It's his empathy and telepathy, being able to read and feel the thoughts of the people around him, to see what they need, see how they feel. Do they feel safe with Martian Manhunter? But once Martian Manhunter is really discovered to be the new protector of Metropolis, again, I think characters like Lex Luthor would be chomping at the bit to get to Martian Manhunter. He would be developing all this new technology to bring him down, trying to figure out his weakness of fire, probably even getting matched up to a character with Parasite in which he could attempt to steal his abilities. There is a lot of issues in that sense Martian Manhunter could possibly have to go through. One of the biggest things I did keep in mind is Martian Manhunter is a much more behind the scenes type of a hero. For a city that is so used to having Superman as its symbol, Martian Manhunter, I don't think, would want that kind of audience and spectacle. Overall, I have no doubt Martian Manhunter would do the job almost pristinely. I don't think there would be too much holding him back, and if there were, he'd figure a way around it. But I do believe his more solitary lifestyle would really keep him back from being that new symbol to the city, and I don't think he would want it because of that. For the Flash, I think it's pretty obvious with his insane speed, he would be capable of dealing with low-level crime and even more massive threats that reside in Metropolis with relative ease. He can also bring in his forensic science into understanding these villains a little bit better than maybe we have before. Also, potentially finding ways to defeat these villains in which speed is not the answer to do so. I do think he would be widely accepted across the entire city and would be somebody all the civilians would love knowing he's the one protecting them in terms of death and destruction from these massive threats. He would be the best of characters to be able to keep people safe or even from dying more than other characters would be able to react to. Flash is strong, but not Superman strong. So if it is a situation where he needs to go up against a Zod or maybe even a Mongol or a Brainiac, he might have a little bit of difficulty there. However, Flash and the Speed Force has basically become one of DC's cheat codes. I'm sure he'd be completely fine. But I do believe that Flash would unintentionally bring a lot of his rogues gallery over into Metropolis, now doubling the amount of crime or meta-human threats that Metropolis already had, as if they even need more of it. In terms of the hope and optimism buzzwords that people love to associate with Superman, the Flash would be able to suit that vibe just as well. He would also bring in the self-doubt, the flaws, the questioning of character that Superman brings. The Flash is the closest connected character in terms of personality, and that's why this would work so much. I also dabbled with Aquaman here, and as long as Metropolis is next to a large body of water, he could potentially make this work. He is capable of holding his own against Superman, which would likely mean he'd be able to do the same thing against his foes. He's very direct and unwavering, which I think would make a lot of villains question their approach on Metropolis, because Aquaman has a much more aggressive attitude to those types of actions. I believe he could also find ways to bridge Metropolis and Atlantis closer together through their own highly advanced technology. With his slightly more aggressive nature, I think the way he would handle things might not be the most popular decision. It might look and seem to be more harsh, and he might feel to be a much more distant protector than Superman ever was. I just don't think Aquaman is a great city protector. A lot of his powers and abilities are, well, seaworthy. That's where they truly belong. A lot of cities are not his wheelhouse, and I don't really think he would have that much interest in prioritizing something like Metropolis. I believe I even said something very similar about him in the Batman Gotham City video, and as powerful as Aquaman can be, that doesn't make up for the fact that city protection just doesn't suit him. For the last character I decided to go with in this video, it is Shazam. Superman level power and strength, along with the additional of magical advantages. I've seen a lot of people over the past couple of months talk about how maybe he should be included to the Superman family, which is kind of an interesting connection. There is a way here where Shazam is being brought up by Superman to be Metropolis's next official defender. And in terms of being a symbol to the people of Metropolis, he might have the best chances of being the most beloved, especially when you think of the symbol on his chest piece, his suit, the colors. He's kind of unforgettable. One of the biggest things I kind of tied to here was he also understands his human side and God side hardships on a level that Superman would, which makes him good for the city. Finding ways, learning, differentiating what it means to be human, but to be God, to be superhuman alien strength, to know the consequences of using certain actions, to know when you should do those actions, and all of the above. I think he would understand it in a way Superman would, and still learns as time goes on. Just in case, if there is some negatives here, we do need to look at it from the perspective of him being a teenager. With inexperience, wild emotions, and obviously some growing pains, it might make it difficult for him to protect the city, especially when bigger threats come along. With that inexperience also comes his less analytical approaches to how he deals with the villains in Metropolis. Threats like, again, Lex Luthor, Brainiac, or even someone like Ultra Humanite, much harder for Shazam than usual because they're so intelligent, strategic, and tactical, and Shazam, mainly Billy Batson, is not much of that in his younger age. So overall, I think Shazam would be strong enough to handle some of these villains, maybe not the smartest, especially near the beginning. Could he grow to be, in his own way, a clone of Superman? 100%. I think he could be that good. But if we are looking at it from a perspective where he is still a teenager, it might not be the best time. I think at the end of this, guys, my number one choice or choices, because I have them tied for first, would be the Flash or Green Lantern. I think those two characters would be well suited for Metropolis. They would be similar enough to Superman in terms of perspective, but they would also be different enough, bringing in their own challenges, their own powers, and their own views on how they would help and assist Metropolis. Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, and Shazam have some really great potential. Batman would only be good for an interim amount of time, and Aquaman overall would be a no for me. But guys, you let me know in the comments below, out of all these characters, who do you think would be best suited to protect Metropolis with Superman no longer there? And also comment some characters you think would be good that I didn't mention or bring into the video. That is all I have for you on this one, everyone. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.